All right, I think we can go ahead and get started then. So I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, the Halifax Finance Committee meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Today is Tuesday, March 28th. The meeting is being recorded by Area 58. In attendance from the Finance Committee is Michael Bennett, Frank Johnston, Cheryl Zarella Burke, Jim Walters, and myself, Todd Dargy. Absent is Jonathan Smallin. So first order of business on the agenda was the acceptance of the meeting minutes from March 13th. And those been circulated, and I believe everyone has had a chance to review. Any open discussion on the minutes?
No.
No. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes from March 13th?
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Cheryl. Roll call vote. Frank?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes, on the minutes.
Michael?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
And myself is a yes as well. Motion carries. So without further ado, I see Jill, you're on. I guess, are we waiting for Christine, I guess, to join too? Or
Christine plans to join us. She might be logging in.
okay, we can give it another couple minutes. I know we're a couple minutes ahead of time here, which is fine. So in the interim, I'll just bring up the, I don't know, did you have anything particularly you're going to share other than just the budgets that were submitted, I guess? I can go ahead and pull those up in the folder here.
Yes, we have a Halifax budget. We have a Silver Lake shared cost budget, and we also have some warrant articles. We have Jason Fraser representing Silver Lake tonight, and we have Summer Smelling representing Halifax schools.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So I'm just going to share my screen with what I have here. Actually, I will not be sharing my screen. The host is disabled the sharing. Is Steve there around, Andy?
So he was supposed to make sure that we were able to share it. All right, I will contact him.
Okay. We'll just give it a minute, I guess, for maybe need to join, I guess. Or are you guys comfortable, I guess, with starting with the article, the capital requests first, I guess? See if we can get Caesar to share the screen, because the budget has a lot more detail in there. I think it would be more helpful to share the screen, but if we want to go through the capital item, I guess maybe we can do that first.
Sure.
Okay. So let me just pull up at least my screen here. So I see there was two articles submitted, right? So one was the repair of the rooftop heating units on the Silver Lake Regional District High School for an amount of $202,458.79.
So,
Yes.
Fraser, I am the chair of the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee for Silver Lake Regional Schools. And I actually have some news to share with you on that warrant article. We have two HVAC units on the top of Silver Lake Regional High School, desperate need of repair. Were worked on over the summer and are being held together with good wishes and duct tape at this point. We had a $300,000 placeholder in our capital plan for those two HVAC units. But as we got closer to moving this towards an article, we had a verbal quote moved up to a written quote. And unfortunately, we got the number in after Silver Lake Regional School had voted both of the units to be put up as a warrant article. When we got the written quote, my eyes almost fell out of my head, because we went from a $300,000 for both units to a $650,000 for both units. Turns out that verbal quote that we had in our capital plan was several years old. And as with many of our capital items, got pushed down the line several times. We kept passing it over year in and year out, and we had never gotten that number updated. We've put some internal controls in place to make sure that doesn't happen again. We've gone back to our facilities director and said, which one is mission critical. And we are planning on amending down on the floor at all three towns, the request by half. And we're going to do one of the HVAC units on the building, the one that's most critical to our day-to-day operations, which happens to be the air handler for the cafeteria and the kitchen. So please expect to see that number go down to around $101,000. $101,000 is what I would expect it to come out around. We're hoping that the other unit can hold on, and we might be coming back next year or try find some other ways to pay for it. But we did not anticipate the number being this high, and we do not expect the towns to pay for both of these units at this point.
Okay, thank you for the background. I guess just a couple questions, I guess, for me anyways, is, so the total amount for the one is what, $300,000, I guess, or what's
About
the?
$325,000, that's correct.
Okay, and so that's being allocated equally across the three towns?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and is there any reason why, I guess, is that just what we've historically done, I guess, with the allocation, I guess, or have we looked at allocating based on, town size and revenue and things of
That's
that nature?
exactly how it is allocated. It's allocated the same way that your assessment
Okay.
your operating budget comes out. So in this case, Kingston will take over 50% of the cost. Halifax will see about 35% of the cost, and Plimpton will see about 12% of the cost. So it's based down by population and usage of the building.
Okay, but so then our portion is expected to be what, 100,000, you said?
That is correct. You should see the number that we quoted cut in half, since we're only doing one of the units. However, this still needs to be voted by the committee. One of the reasons we put forth the number is we did not have time to reconvene the committee to just put the article through, as we intend to now bring it to the floor. So I'm speaking as a single member, but the chair of that subcommittee, and that's what I'm going to bring forth to the Silver Lake Regional School next time we convene. And I have no reason to believe that the rest of the committee will not agree. So yes,
Sure.
Please plan on seeing that number amended down by about on the floor.
Okay, and is there a date scheduled, I guess, for the committee to reconvene, I guess, for this to be voted on, or?
Yeah, we're going to have a meeting before the town meetings. I believe our next meeting is mid-April, the second Thursday of April, I believe. I don't have my calendar up right now. Yes, April 13th is when we should have our next Silver Lake Regional School Committee meeting.
All right, any other questions or comments, concerns from others of the Finance Committee?
No.
Is the written quote the final quote, or is there going to be an increase due to inflationary costs?
I would hope to God that since that written quote just came in, that it will hold us through at least a 6-month period. That's what most of our quotes that come in written form at this point are being held to, about a 6-month guarantee of prices without inflationary pressures. And this is something, the moment we have the articles passed, if all three towns do vote to pass this article, we'll be operating for July 1 setup. This is an absolute mission critical for the building. If the HVAC unit that's over the cafeteria goes out, we're going to have some major issues with temperatures, especially in September and October, with the ambient temperatures outside, in addition to the cooking fires from the cafeteria. So it's going to be something we jump right on. Don't plan on holding on to that money very long at all if we are granted those warrant articles.
So,
Okay. All right, great. Any other questions? Okay. All right, thank you very much for that. And then, so the next item we have on the list was the middle school resource officer, which I see is tagged as raised and appropriate.
Yes, we share the cost with Plimpton for this officer at the middle school. Kingston funds the full-time school resource officer for the high school. This is similar to past articles in the way that we have gone about funding it per the request of the Kingston Police and because of their jurisdiction in Silver Lake schools in terms of the police department there.
Okay, so this is an ongoing one, right, Cindy? We had this last year, right?
Yeah.
Right, and because
And-
this is ongoing and we'll be getting it
Yeah.
every year, that's why we're taking it from raise and appropriate
Right,
rather
yeah.
than from free cash.
Yep. Okay, and is the amount consistent over, or what was the increase from year over year? Do we know that offhand, or?
Actually, I think this is the same as last year.
Okay.
This is Christine Healy. I actually increased it by $2,000.
Oh, all right.
Okay,
It had been
It
at
was
36.
36.
Yeah, it's a total of 50 between the two towns, and it's been at 36 for several years. And I can just see how we're really bumping up against that upper limit when we process the invoices.
okay. All right, sounds good. I guess any questions from anyone on the committee?
Which town provides the officer? It's Halifax, correct?
No.
No, it's
No. Kingston,
Kingston does.
Kingston has to provide the officer because the building is in Kingston.
Right.
That's what we've been told.
yes, Kingston has jurisdiction on the Silver Lake campus because it is a Kingston, it's in the town of Kingston.
That's it. Yeah.
All right, great. Any other questions for Jill on this item? Or Christine?
Mm.
No? Okay. All right, great. Thank you very much, everyone, for the details on those. So then I guess jumping into the budgets themselves. So I have these two sheets that were saved down for us, I guess. So which one would you prefer to start at, I guess? Or-
Whatever, yeah, we can start with Halifax. I see this budget is up here. This is the budget that was voted by the school committee. I know that Summer, the school committee chair, is here. I don't know if she'd like to speak to this or if she'd like for me to give an overview.
I'm fine either way, Jill. Holding true with what the town has asked us throughout the years, we always provide a level service budget. And so that's what we did this year. This year we did go a little bit above and beyond and put something in the two things in the operating budget. That one was being funded by an ESSER grant, and which is the math interventionist, and one was adding band to the elementary school. We're the only elementary school in the district that does not have instrument as part of the day. Plimpton and Kingston both do, and we were presented with the opportunity to share this position with Plimpton, and we decided to throw it in our operating budget this cycle. We came in at a pretty low increase, like just around 2%, and we thought that this was a reasonable time to place this into our budget. And then the other position that was funded by an ESSER grant using money that came in during COVID was a math interventionist, and it's a point. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jill. It was a 0.6 position that was funded by our budget. 0.4 of it was funded by the ESSER grant. And as a committee, we decided that this was beneficial to our students and something we'd like to continue to see moving forward. So instead of relying on grant money that's always not available to the town, we decided to put it in our operating budget. So aside from those two small increases, which were, I think, maybe 40,000 in total. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was a level service budget, but it still came in at about 2.5% increase.
The total of those increases was 52,000 for the point for music as well as for the balance of the interventionist to be full-time.
Okay.
And sorry, and so what line items do we see those on?
You would see them under the teaching expense line, which is LO1 000 2300 100. It's like 5 or 6 down from the top of the page. on the first page.
I see. 7.8%.
The first round of the budget, the pass of the budget that we did, we did not include those positions. And then once we had a conversation as a committee and with our building administration and members of the community and the people that were interested in adding the band throughout the district, we decided as a committee that it was appropriate to add it to the operating budget at this time.
So this is the line item here, right? The teaching services,
Yes.
7.56%
That's the
increase.
correct line, yes.
Okay. Okay, but then, so, I mean, just looking at the materiality of some of the changes here, so, instructional software increase, can you just give us the high level behind that one, I guess? So that jumped by 8,000, is that just due to licensing costs, I guess, increases, or?
Typically, that's the case. We didn't, to the best of my knowledge, again, Jill, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall adding any additional programs to our school. It's just maintaining, licensing agreements that we already have. And we also are fortunate that we qualify for a REAP grant. So a lot of our technology and technology related expenses, we actually fund through a grant. And so we're fortunate in that way. And we were able to decrease that line item from our original budget presentation. But to the best of my knowledge, it's mostly licensing expenses. Is that correct, Jill?
Yes, the instructional software are all the curriculum related materials that we use to support students in the classroom. A lot of them are subscriptions that are continued. Some of them are additional resources related to textbooks, which now tend to be online. Or offer an online component as well. There are also software or testing components that also can fall into these line items. The $30,000, I believe, from REAP would have come from our technology hardware, which is actually a different line item, but you are correct. We did already reduce the technology hardware by $30,000.
Okay.
And the instrumental position is a 0.4 FTE. That's a part-time teacher. And that teacher could in fact be shared with Plimpton Elementary School, who has a 0.6 teacher. That teacher could become a full-time teacher with 0.6 of that position being managed by the Dennett School Department and 0.4 being managed by the Halifax School Department. This will allow Halifax students in grade 5 and 6 to participate in instrumental lessons.
This is unabashedly a salad.
Which, just to make note, that Kingston and Plimpton both have that resource available to their students. Halifax is the only school in the district that does not have instrumental in the district. And that's why we felt as a committee it was important to have all of our kids kind of on the same playing field when they go to middle school, because they all merge together.
Okay. Any other questions in regards to that?
Many insights.
No. Okay. So just jumping to the next page quickly here for a second. I did see this. So this other special education teaching services though just did increase pretty significantly. What are the drivers, I guess, behind that one?
Staffing level in that account did not change, but what did change is we had several people that did leave, and then we had to replace them. We weren't able to find replacements at we had budget in that. But in addition, I should include that there is an additional person there because we had a program that we were paying tuition to students to go to a program at Kingston Intermediate for the DLC program. And Halifax had enough of their own population where they brought that into the district. So what's happening is, although we have a salary increase there, we know we have this decrease in tuitions because of that.
Oh, looks like it.
Okay. But so there was an add to staff in here as well?
There was an ad for a staff person that it's actually happened during this current year, during 23. And they are servicing those students so they don't have to go out of district or go to a tuition program.
Mhm.
So in essence, that means long-term, it's going to be a cost savings to the district because you don't see it reflected in this line item always, but sometimes you'll see it in like transportation costs and, out of district special education spending that if we have to send a student out of district for services that we cannot meet in the district, long-term, it becomes a higher expense than if we can service them and hire a staff member to meet their needs in the district.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments on that from anyone on the finance committee before we jump to another item?
Can they help me understand why the nurse line item went up 88%?
Well, we're going to jump to that in a second, I guess. Is any other questions on the teaching service?
Is that special ed teacher a full-time position or a part-time position?
It's a full-time position
Full-time in Halifax?
at the Halifax Elementary, yes.
And have we hired that person yet? You said it started in budget 23, is that correct?
It actually started during this year because Halifax had enough of a population to service the students within the elementary school instead of paying tuition to Kingston Intermediate to send them there.
So the person's already employed.
They are already in place, yes.
Mhm.
And the reason for the increase in the school, in the shared cost nurse leader, has to do with the assessments for Halifax and their part of the assessment for that particular position. So when that contract was agreed upon and voted as part of the shared cost budget, I believe that's probably the main reason for this increase here, Christine.
Yeah, there was a slight salary increase for the nurse leader, but there was also the addition per the joint meeting of a float nurse.
Okay.
So it's a float nurse that'll be available to all of the schools when needed, and then also working on projects.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the obviously the most significant one, as Frank pointed out, right? It's a major increase, I guess. But so what's the benefit of the floating nurse, I guess, over? What can you just explain the back? Like, what do we have today, and what value add is the floating nurse giving us that we don't already have in place today, I guess?
So the value of the floating nurse is that they provide substitute nursing when a nurse is out. They also provide additional support for the nurses throughout the district for the increasing number of requirements and screenings and paperwork that is required by the State Department. The cost for a nurse substitute is sometimes almost as high as $400 per day right now if you use a contracted services.
Okay, and we have one. How many nurses are assigned as of now? Is it just one, I guess, or?
We during COVID, we had one float nurse. And that the money that we had to support that position has gone away. So we have a float nurse position in our budget now being proposed to fill that position.
But so my question, I guess, is that there's a full-time nurse there today, right? It's just one position, one staff member?
Just one staff member, yes.
Okay, and then, so it's $400 per day for a substitute, I guess. How often is the person calling out, I guess, that?
So I don't mean to interrupt, but I think it's important to note that that's a shared cost item. So that's something that's shared across the district. It's not solely for Halifax. And so that decision to employ that float nurse was made by Union 31. And so it's not just a Halifax solely made decision. So if the majority of the 3 towns that sit on that committee make the decision to employ that person, then we sort of have to, as Halifax residents, even if we don't necessarily
Use it.
or agree with that expense, we're sort of married to it because the majority of the people that sit on that board decided that that was beneficial to the district as a whole.
Okay, so, yeah, so, I mean, thank you for the, I mean, we're just trying to understand the background here as well, but thank you for that context as well. It's helpful, but, so what is our plan? Well, I guess, well, what is our allocation amount of the overall percentage cost?
So as Mr. Fraser had indicated earlier, Halifax is about 33% of the district. So that's typically, or no, not typically, that is what our share of any of the shared cost items is.
Well, just to put some context into that specific line, the nurse leader and the float nurse are paid by Silver Lake, and Silver Lake pays one half of that, and the other half is in a portion to the 3 towns based on their enrollment. And Halifax's percentage of that half is about 30.8%.
Thank you, Christine.
Christine, can you give us the total dollar amount for that so that we also have that context as well?
I did not bring my shared cost budget, but let me just see what I can do.
I think Jan kind of sets the tone, and I know
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
just for a bit of context on the float nurse, we did ask the administration to go back and do an analysis of how much we were paying for substitute agency nurses and compare it to the cost for actually hiring a float nurse. We had the same concerns that you are voicing here of how often were we utilizing that.
Mhm.
The difference was substantially in favor of moving towards the float nurse, which is why it was voted by, as Summer said, that joint committee of the 3 towns and the region.
And the total amount for the nurse leader and the float nurse is $70,000. That's on the Silver Lake budget. Half of that stays with Silver Lake and the other half is in a portion to the 3 towns.
yeah, I just wonder, so, Glenn, I guess as part of that analysis, I guess, was there any thought given to the underlining effect on the towns, I guess? So like collectively, like, you know, it may make sense, but as an individual town, does it make sense? I'd like to, you know, if that analysis was done at that level to see what the impact on an individual town. Because so I guess that was the question, was that done, I guess, do you know, or?
We looked at the attendance. Our HR director looked at the attendance for our nurses, looked at across all of our schools, looked at the costs associated with hiring substitute nurses through an agency. And that information was provided to the school committee. I don't have that available to me right now, but I could get that to Halifax as well if they'd like to see that. But we can't share names of individuals.
Oh,
because
sure, yeah, no, totally understand that.
of personnel law.
Yep, no, totally understand. Yeah, just trying to get a sense of like, and again, it's just understanding, I guess, of what kind of analysis and discussions go into some of these decisions to, you know, in aggregate, like, you know, that analysis, which it sounds like it was done in aggregate, you know, likely, you know, I'm sure it did showcase that, you know, there's an added benefit in doing that, but I was just wondering if there's any thought given to the individual underlying impacts to the town. So to our extent where if we're not utilizing the town, we're actually subsidizing another town's benefit of whole, right? So particularly, you know, Kingston, which is a much larger town.
That's the beauty of being in a regional school district. Trust me, I can assure you that this was a healthy debate and conversation when we were having it, because, and it usually is with things that are shared costs, because to your point, sometimes things benefit one town more so than the other, not necessarily Kingston over Halifax, or, you know, sometimes it's Halifax that benefits over Kingston, but you know, and it's not always unanimous when these decisions are made, but at the end of the day, you know, our kids all end up at Silver Lake, so we have to keep that in mind also.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, totally understood. Yeah, and I'm 100% all for giving the kids everything possible that we can, right? Certainly want to support that in any way we can. part of the challenges is, and where we're kind of coming from with some of this is just the financial, restrictions that the town is kind of under, right? So, the almost 6% increase year over year is not something that's going to be
They can
sustainable.
sustain.
So, that's a factor we need to consider. We can only afford what we can afford, right? So, that might be a much larger discussion for a different day, but definitely something that we need to think about and concerned about.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Mhm.
All right, anything else from the committee members on any of the line items here? I know I kind of just cherry picked some of the high ones, but if there's any particular ones anyone wants to kind of discuss what we have to focus on, we can certainly do that.
In the textbook programs, you've got 66% drop. Is that due to the online side of things going up?
So the previous 2 years, we had an ELA or a literacy program purchase, which raised the cost of our textbook line for 2 years. We are now in the phase where we are examining curriculum in another area. You could see this line increase again as we adopt new programs or certain programs are phased out, as sometimes happens with curriculum materials. And so the decrease is because we have paid for our literacy program, the textbooks, the amount that helped raise the level the previous 2 years. The cost was divided across 2 years to help it become more palatable or feasible for the towns to be able to afford.
Just because there seems to be a lot of new members on the finance committee, but so we, to Jill's point, over the last few years, our curriculum coordinator is really excellent at, having foresight and looking ahead at what is coming down the pike in terms of curriculum. And sometimes there are years where we see an $80,000 increase in that line item. And then through a conversation with the town, to Dr. Prue's point, is we'll divide that up, knowing that it's coming, and do, for example, like a $40,000 hit and then a $40,000 hit instead of taking one $80,000 hit in 1 year. But it kind of like peaks and dips. So sometimes it's really high, sometimes it's really low, depending on, the need and which area we're focused on. Sometimes it's ELA, sometimes it's science, sometimes it's history. It just depends on how the curriculum is developing moving forward. And this happens to be a year where we don't have the need to purchase a new curriculum program. But be prepared, because that might change next year.
So you forecasted out the next 5 years, or how does that work in your forecasting of numbers?
We have a curriculum review cycle. The next item that's being looked at is the science curriculum, and they are in a piloting phase. We may see something as early as next year as a proposal, but the amount of time that it takes teachers to review, to provide input to the coordinator and examine multiple potential resources. Sometimes it can take longer than a year to review a curriculum item, but each of our subjects is on a multi-year rollout. We can also provide you with that schedule, but the next one up, the one that we're currently in review cycle for, is science. And we are looking at, we have a grant to examine Open SciEd, which is a phenomenological based program.
And in a couple of days, you're going to receive your photo in a beautiful handmade frame. So if you've got a special photo,
Anything else for? If not, there's one other item I want to just kind of cover here, which is the been one of our biggest challenges is the special education transportation. If we can on that for a few moments. So I guess with our existing, have we looked at other alternatives, I guess, to kind of bring this cost down? I know it's kind of stabilized, but since last year, but we definitely did see, some overages on the cost there. So wondering if have we looked at other opportunities for other providers, I guess, if they exist, things of that nature.
So I'll let Christine follow up with what I'm about to say, because this is something that she's been tackling for a long time. And it's something that we tackle as a committee that is difficult for us because clearly it's out of our hands and it's something that we're mandated to provide, rightfully so. But after COVID, there was a shortage of drivers and there was a shortage of vendors. We've had conversations with the COA on potentially using vans, but they have to be up to a certain code and or like certified or whatever. Like they have to be a specific type of vehicle to transport these students. So this is like an expense that's completely out of our control. And I will say that Christine has been fabulous at trying to exhaust every resource possible, but we find ourselves in this position sometimes with the bus contract where we're literally like pigeonholed, like we have no other choice. And the number of vendors have decreased since COVID, and finding drivers is also an issue. And so our hands are like essentially tied here, and we've tried to be as creative as we possibly can. And also I want to give credit here to our special ed director, Marie Grable, who has, like, to circle back to a previous conversation, moved many special ed programs into district, which is helping us with the expense of transportation. But again, there are just some needs for students that we cannot meet in the district. And it's essentially our hands are just tied here. But we've definitely looked at this line item extensively and done everything that we possibly can to try to alleviate this cost burden. But Christine, you can take it away from there if I missed anything.
No, you didn't miss anything. You did a nice job of kind of summarizing all of that. With special ed transportation, we had some primary providers that we used prior to COVID, and then the availability of the drivers and the companies started to change, and we continued to go back to them to see if they have any additional capacity that they could work with us on. The problem has been we can't get the capacity with the local vendors that were more cost effective for us. We have to then start reaching out to other vendors that are available to do the route. And I think, as we know, unfortunately, students are all going to school around the same time and coming home at the same time. So we have to find those arrangements for each and every one of our students, all happening at the same time. I have had several conversations with Selectman Seelig about the possibility of the Council on Aging van, and there was some additional work he was doing. I did share with him that the vans would have to be 7D vans, and they would have to be 7D compliant, and the drivers would have to be 7D certified, because that's what the requirement is to transport students to school to home. So he is looking into that to see if those vans do have that certification, if the drivers have that certification, and what kind of a possibility that would be based on the vans and the drivers that the town currently has in their availability.
Yep. Yeah, no, I've been kind of discussing with Jonathan Seelig on that and as well. So I guess one of the things is just do we have a sense of the bus? So I guess to just take a step back. So when I think you may have shared some of the details on the cost, like as far as the schools that were in scope and things of that nature. So when I actually broke that down, it looked like of the $895,000 that was provided, about $250,000 of that was associated specifically with Kingston Elementary School. So I think, that would be the biggest bang for our buck if we were going to be able to do something, which is ideal anyways, because it's local. Like, certainly we don't want to get involved in trying to transport students to Randolph or other further schools outside of our immediate area. So, but Kingston Elementary is obviously close by, and so that could be a possibility if we were to say utilize the COA vans or purchase additional vans to do that. Servicing elementary is certainly doable. Obviously, there's other concerns like you mentioned with hiring and staffing drivers to drive the vehicles. But I guess, do we have a sense of the bus routes? I guess the number of routes that would be in scope for the Kingston Elementary School? Is that something that can be provided? Because that would be important, right? Because that's going to drive, I guess, A, how many vehicles would be needed, and then B, how many drivers we would need to staff that as a potential alternative.
I do not know the number of routes that we have. And as you mentioned, Kingston Elementary, so that's probably, we have the preschool program that's there. so many students that have transportation provided based on their IEP. And there's also a DLC program there. So that may be why that's the biggest provider. We have probably 8 or 9 different providers that are providing transportation for us, and we'd have to look at
Yeah, so it was Van
how we
Pool
can make that
specific.
work.
It was Van Pool in specific was $153,000 of that, so.
Yeah,
So I
Van
think
Pool-
that would be the one we would potentially look at to see if there's an ability. The other one was North River, 65,000, and Purple Lady is 32,000. So those are a little bit smaller.
Mhm.
But the Van Pool, like I said, was 153,000 of 251. So it's like I don't know, 60% or something.
And Van Pool is one of the more cost-effective providers that we have. So we would have to just
Okay.
look to see what that,
Yeah, exactly.
how that
Yeah.
can work, and if the vans have that certification that would be needed.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot to figure out here. So by no means are we saying, it's a solution. We're just trying to kick the tires on, explore, and just, as, we're all volunteers here, just, townspeople. And so just trying to do our due diligence for the town and see if, and just vet any, possible solutions to at least see if they're viable. And at the end, we may come to the decision that, yeah, there were, as someone pointed out, our hands are just tied here. We have no choice but to bear whatever increased charges keep coming through that line item. But just something we wanted to explore, I guess, if there's a way we could kind of just track down, I guess, the routes associated with that. I don't know. That's something they can provide, or if that would be helpful in engaging, I guess, any potential.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, whose dish is on the chopping block?
All right, so I think that was it for the budgets, at least from my perspective, I guess. Did anybody else have anything they want to cover here before we move over to the Sugar Lake?
Can I just add one piece of just
Yeah,
putting this all in context? When you're looking on the screen, you saw the regular day operating, you see special education with a decrease. And one of the reasons for the decrease is the town was able to help us last year with some of the additional transportation costs. And we did receive some circuit breaker reimbursement this year. And we can use that with either transportation or tuition. So for us, the carryover that we're going to have is all under the tuition line. So I wanted to mention that the total of all of the special education tuition is about 2.8 million.
Yeah.
So there's about $800,000 in offsets based on the circuit breaker that we're going to carry over from this year to next year, and the circuit breaker that we're going to receive next year. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then when you add the different budget lines, there are actually 4 budget lines for Halifax. When you add those together, the increase from FY 23 to 24 is $229,850 combined in the 3 lines, with a budget increase overall of 2.54%. And then I just did some checking today earlier with Chapter 70 money, and Halifax will be receiving additional Chapter 70 money this year for FY 24. It'll be receiving $335,000 more in Chapter 70 money in 24 versus 23. So I just wanted to mention that we stayed below that. What that increase is going to be in funds coming to the town. Our budget increases would be less than that for 24.
Right, but Christine, when I went back and looked at it, you're right, we did receive an extra 335,000 in Chapter 70, but our elementary school budget went up 352, almost 353,000. And we are getting a decrease in our special needs tuition, but that is because of the extra circuit breaker money. And I think you had told me it was almost 300,000 in extra circuit breaker.
Well,
and special needs tuition came down 130,000. So even though, at the bottom line, we're only a 2.54% increase, the elementary school budget itself was a 5.9% increase.
Correct.
The pitch just is the pitch around, never do it. It's just because they got it so down, they don't.
But thank you for providing those special needs figures. And if you could send that information to me in an email, that would be great. So I can put it.
Sandy, the detail of the tuition number from the gross to it.
Yes, from the gross to the net. That would be very helpful.
All right, so I think we're good here. I guess if we want to jump over to the
English person.
so this is just the assessment breakdown, I guess.
Yes, that's a copy of the assessment that was voted on Silver Lakes at Silver Lakes 3-9 meeting. And you can see, this is kind of a summary of last year versus this year. And then on the left-hand side, you see a summary of the budget and all, some of those items that are used to offset the budget, the revenue items, state aid. And then that brings us to the final tuition number, the final assessment numbers that we're using. And then on the bottom, we see the total assessment of operating budget and debt payments and what those increases are year over year from 23 to 24.
Mhm.
And I guess I just wanted to add, if you, on the bottom, you can see the differences in the percentages between communities. And some of that is influenced by our budget, and some of it is influenced by the offsets that we have, but some of it is also influenced by the minimum contribution required by the state telling us Halifax has to pay X amount before anything else is done. And after that's been assigned, based on the information that we receive regarding Chapter 70, we then apportion everything else purely based on enrollment in the region.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, all right. Any questions from anyone here?
I have to use this portal somewhere, and I think it will blend really nicely into the Marshall Homewood and of the delay of the cheese. She's checking the meringue. She's checking the meringue right now. The first time I checked the meringue.
No.
No, you can do with it.
Okay. All right. Well, Jill, Christine, Summer, Glenn, appreciate your time here tonight. It's very helpful. Yeah, thank you for joining and thanks for sharing all the details and answering all of our questions. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. Yep, thanks. All right, so then jumping on, so I think Darlene is on. So Darlene, let me just bear with me 1 second, I guess. Let me see if I can get your budget pulled up there. So next we're going to cover the Council on Aging budget update. That was an update. So I guess Darlene, if you want to cover anything material. I haven't had a chance to actually look at it myself. I don't know if others had a chance to pop in, but want to just share, Darlene, I guess what's really changed. Darlene, are you there? Darlene? Away. Oh, she's raising her hand. Go ahead, Darlene. You'd be able to speak.
Darlene did provide me with a new budget that.
Yeah, this is it here, right? You can see my screen.
So that's not it. She gave me another one tonight. I'm just
Oh,
trying.
this one said it was 5 minutes ago.
Oh, did it?
5 no, 5 hours. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's the one Cody and I discussed with her this
All right.
afternoon, but there is one, she sent me in an email and I'm trying to see if I can get it onto the OneDrive.
Oh, okay.
Give me a minute.
Yeah, sure.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, let me log off my other one. There we go. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. Just bear with us 1 second, Darlene. Sandy's just going to upload the most recent budget. It sounds like there was another update just this afternoon. So
I'm not sure how to get it to where it needs to be. So hang on.
Do you want me to send it again?
No, I have it in the email, Darlene. I'm just trying to figure out how to save it into the OneDrive. Into
Can you
the
just
right
forward
folder.
it in the email, Sandy, or no?
Can I forward it to you?
Yeah,
Oh, sure.
yeah,
That's
just forward it to
easier.
me and I'll just pull it up there.
All right.
I still have the school budget here.
Yeah, I'm just leaving that up because we'll need to come back to that. Sharon was just
forwarded
talking
that.
about proving it. I'm just gonna keep it in the background. I'll put the other one on top of this.
But just to mention on the school bus issue with regard to the vans.
Yeah, I know we keep referring to your department, I know, but nothing's certainly imminent and there's a lot to be discussed.
Right.
So we haven't
Yeah.
made any decisions. Certainly, obviously we would discuss with you before.
So I guess one of the questions was the 7D versus MARTAP, and
Yeah.
training. So I actually was looking into that for Jonathan. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I had a brief chat with him today, just to give me an update that he took a look at the vans and stuff, and so
Yeah.
So the biggest concerns are like, it sounds like maybe it's an easy fix, but then there's the whole driver situation, which is a challenge in just hiring people these days. And then again, we need to assess the routes. I think the routes are the key factor, right? Like if there's 60 routes, then we need 30 drivers, then right, like something crazy like that, then obviously doesn't make sense. So we need to know how many buses we need and how many drivers, right, to staff the route. So until we know that, then I don't know that there's anything we can. All right, so this is the budget that Sandy had sent over just now. So we'll get it saved to the share drive for everybody, later on. But I guess, Darlene, do you want to?
Yeah. I thought I would be on two screens here, but unfortunately something's wrong with my own computer here. So the initial wage for the director's position, of course, I was looking to increase that to a step 11, only because of the.
All of the wage accounts we're going to deal with later, Darlene. So if you want to just
Okay.
concentrate on your expense account.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, that's my fault because I was on
That's
that
all right, not a
section. But
problem.
yeah,
Not a
go ahead. So
problem.
here's the expense section here.
Okay, so basically we have no internet service, van supplies and maintenance. Basically each year we are required for the 3 vans to have them maintained, of course. But also that includes a thorough cleaning for, where they're high usage and so on. So that is included in that particular line item. The stickers for each one. Technically, I was, when I was thinking of putting this in, I had initially put in an extra $2,000 only because of the fact we have a van that is 2013 and it has a lift that allows a person in a wheelchair to get on that lift. Now that should be maintained by a specific company that does charge a lot of money to make sure that it's, operating okay. We've had to take it to the shop a couple of times and I thought, oh gosh, this was going to cost us a lot of money. Thankfully, they were able to fix some of the things and it wasn't as costly, thank goodness. So
Does that go under an annual inspection, I guess, Darlene, for that?
No, because it's extra. When you say annual inspection, the annual inspection would be, of course, the, stickers and so on, yeah. But for the actual inspection of that vehicle, that type of a vehicle, we want to make sure that's always safe, of course. And, we've been pretty good about maintaining it in our own town. I mean, they've been really, if anything happens, we're fortunate enough to have someone over in our highway department to take a look at it, Tom, the mechanic, and he's been very awesome. It's been it's been a great savings for us. So, basically I'm going to say about $1,500 right now, but doesn't mean that we can't get hit. But as Sandy had mentioned, thankfully, that she said that we do have some money in built in from the collections of the transportation that we do, get from, transporting people outside the community. Inside the community itself, we don't charge, but going, to different places, we even drive to Boston, which is $30 round trip. That's pretty good, I guess, from what I understand. But I mean, it does come out of, if anything does happen, it would have to come out of that budget. And we've been pretty good so far. So we do have enough resources, Sandy had mentioned, which is we were thankful for that could support that if in fact that did happen, because it is a 2013 van with that special lift, so.
How many miles are on that van?
Oh, boy.
Offhand or guesstimate, I guess?
There's a lot of miles on that van.
Is there?
So,
and how many miles? Do you know how many miles, like, typically, like in a year, I guess, that the van's kind of.
I can get you that figure, but we've had more usage now than we ever did, and I don't know. I'm glad that we are, but I also am saying that at some point that's it's going to tax that particular van at some point,
Okay.
So, but it's a 2013 van, as long as we're maintaining it and, the best to our ability. We do have the 2020 van, but it doesn't have the lift. So, and technically we are to be ADA compliant, ADA, servicer, provider. So if someone did need a wheelchair, we would only, if we didn't have that 2013 van, we wouldn't be able to transport them. And that's not what we're supposed to be able to do that.
And so you mentioned there's been an increase in the usage of the vans. Is that just a byproduct of the work that you've been doing to engage the community and get folks involved in this I guess?
Yeah, there has the good thing is the word's out there that we are support systems, and for any person that's over age 60, but as well as any person under age 60 that has medical issues or chronic illness and disease, that we provide these services for. So we're doing what we're supposed to do in terms of as a community servicer or provider. And so I think the increase is just based on the fact that we're having an older population, and there's been a lot of operations, and we have to go back and forth to the doctors. And I think too, a lot of the doctors today, the providers, we can probably all contest to this, that, they're asking people to go into Boston to have certain tests done. So we're seeing an increase in that. And we do see a lot of increase. We are supporting services outside the community for events, whether it be wellness programs and so on, because of the fact we do not have those local spots to have these things. So we are providing services to plays that are at Massasoit Community College, in events of that nature, so people wouldn't have to feel intimidated by driving to these, places that they're not familiar with. So I see a lot of increases. Our medical transportation is a priority. And, of course, social rides. I am working on developing Mass Health PT1 access to state transportation. A lot of people may have that and not realize that they can access or don't want to access the PT1, which takes the burden off the town of Halifax. So it's a work in progress on that one.
What about sorry to interrupt you, Darlene. So what about
okay.
the gas? What about the gas to operate the vehicles? I guess where does that sit? I guess actually.
So that's for a town that we usually utilize the town. Yes.
Okay. All right.
So postage is the next
Yeah, I think we
line.
can skip. I mean, these are just pretty much flat. Not,
Yeah, those
Yeah.
are, yeah.
yeah, but this is the big line item here. So this equipment, it looks like there's an additional purchase of some items. I guess maybe if we want to skip
Yeah,
to
the
that.
equipment, I noticed that the equipment over the past couple year, years prior to myself getting on board there, they were about they're $810, and I wasn't quite sure how to define the equipment line item. Do you know what I mean? It could be, copiers, it could be, a new laptop or something. I don't know what that equipment line item meant, except for the fact my interpretation being that if we need another copier or equipment in the office to.
Yeah, but then you have office supplies, I guess. So
Right. Well, the office supplies are more of a, how do you say, tangible items that we use on a constant basis.
Sure.
Where we don't have that. The equipment is more long-term.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so so are you purchasing some kind of dining seating? Or what's the $1,000 made up of?
Yeah, we have some issues with some of that stuff in there. It's very clunky. But I built that in only because of the fact that we're increasing a lot of activities more than we ever did. That I'm just kind of piecing things together. I'm gathering furniture from different places that never been used or older things. And sometime at the future, perhaps maybe we need to think about that, as hopefully we do get a new COA, I hope.
So is this expanding the seating, or is it
Yeah, it's actually a combination if in fact we do need to expand that seating, or perhaps maybe we need to think about more of a type of table that we could potentially use in another building too, if we go and move and so on, but something that is going to be more for crafts end of it, more that we can hold some of our programs. We can take back some of our things. We've scattered so many of our programs all over the place, and a senior is a senior. We want them to be present, in one spot, remember it, everything. They need consistency, so I just built that in there.
So this isn't earmarked to anything specific. It's just a cushion that you want to add in just to allow you to purchase things as deemed fit, I guess, or needed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And if I could write a grant, I will. So I might not use it, but I want it there just in case the grant doesn't come through for me. So we'll see what happens.
But so just going back to the seating, I guess in particular, I guess since it's referenced there, I guess so the seating that you have there today isn't adequate for most functions, I guess, like that you host on site, if you will?
It can. It's okay, but it's piecemeal.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Darlene on that, I guess, for anyone?
Just remember, you're all going to get old.
One of us already is.
Sorry. I'm just telling you this. I don't know why.
Right. One of us already is old. So
Aging is good.
It's a good thing.
This budget that she just sent through that we're looking at now is just about the same as the budget that she had gone over with Cody, but it does have an additional $350 in advertising. I don't know if you want to hit on that, because that was a surprise to me tonight.
Yeah, and then also, well, actually, these are new. Oh, no, yeah, those are from last time. Sorry. Yeah, so the advertising, Darlene, what is that, I guess?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that. So anyway, what happened, we reinstated the LPI, which is we got sponsors throughout the town and outside of our town to sponsor our newsletter. We did get approximately, as I was told, about $4,000 in sponsors. We're looking for more. And at that time, that doesn't give us $4,000 to run the paper almost free. But I mean, I'm trying to not utilize our cartridges and our ink and all that stuff. So the timing involved. So I built the 350 in there basically in the event that we lose a sponsor. Okay. So just as a backup to if that, say we dropped below the sponsored that we have approximately 15 to 20 sponsors at this point. We could potentially gain more, but if in fact we do lose some for some reason, we have some little cushion which would carry us over for 3 months or maybe 2.5 months. So I just thought that would be something to utilize. And then an advertisement, maybe perhaps they utilize, I'm not quite sure how that definition was prior to, prior to 2021 before I got there. But to me, I saw advertising as the way for us to grow as a center, and also that advertising, the backup of in the event that we don't have that sponsor, or we may lose, a sponsor even like 1 or 2 months. Because I'll tell you, I just had 3 more people come to me today and say, I know somebody that wants to sponsor your newsletter. I'm thinking, well, boy, that's 3 more people. So, but I'm also a realist too. Anything can happen and people pull things. So, I'm just hoping that we stay positive. That's what that's all about. A lot to that line item, I guess, huh? For $350.
Yeah, no, makes sense though. I guess any questions for Darlene on the advertising or anything else, I guess, here? So all in all, it's about a 1650. No. Yeah.
Okay.
50 increase, I guess, over previous year.
I missed the spot on where the fuel comes to operate those vans. Who provides the fuel in these numbers?
We do.
Yeah, so the town does provide the fuel, thankfully, until we decide what we're going to do in terms of GATRA. If in fact it does go that direction, I don't know, maybe not ever. But, for now, we supply the gas and that, and those, what gas costs these today. So gosh, if it would be a lot higher.
It's not from Darlene's budget. The gas is through the gas budget, the gas line that we have at the bottom of the FinCom. And
yeah, so the fuel is all coming from a central bucket.
Not out of Darlene's budget.
It's not being allocated per department then.
No.
Okay.
All right, so then I saw that you did increase the electricity, which makes sense. $500 increase there projected. Anything else, I guess, Darlene, from the budget perspective?
So on the electricity, and I think Sandy mentioned already that we were on the grid for that one, so that we do get special pricing for it, huh? I think
the town does. You're on the aggregate, yeah.
The aggregate, okay.
The aggregate, yeah.
But that's going to change in the fall, in October 1st, I believe.
Right, we'll be negotiating a new price in the fall.
So we think 500 is going to be enough to cover the increase in the cost of using more electricity if we have more people utilizing the center?
The only thing I do say, the lighting there is pretty minimal. I'm saying we're not talking like humongous chandelier and whatever. It's not a lot of puck lighting, so we don't have a lot of puck lighting throughout that building. It's pretty much, simple. I don't foresee it, going over the 38. Was that 38? It's so small, but 3,800. It could potentially, but I don't think so. Based on what the type of lighting we have.
Right. And Cody had recommended 4,000.
Did he?
His recommendations, but it's up to you guys. I know that we have been going through replacing all the lighting with LED lights. So I think that we've been seeing the electricity prices coming down, the electricity usage, I shouldn't say prices, I should say usage, coming down a little because of the LED lighting.
Yeah, more efficient lighting.
Right, right. I'm not sure if, I'm pretty sure that the Council on Aging was done, but I would check with Scott to make sure.
Not,
But I just-
we haven't gotten any of the LED lighting yet.
Oh, you haven't? Okay.
Mm-mm.
Well,
No.
we'll talk to Scott about that.
Well, maybe we should have, what's that, that service that comes in, the energy service
No,
there?
yeah, save.
Mass Save? No, they call it Revive. So maybe we should
Yeah.
have, I
Part
think,
of, no, part of Mass Save.
yeah, it's actually called Revive now, so we potentially could ask them to come in and do an assessment. They get free light bulbs. I
You
don't know.
do light bulbs,
Yep.
lighting fixtures, extension cords.
Yeah, and where it's
Yeah.
an older building, it would make sense. There's a lot of things we could consider or look at it probably.
Probably would.
So we have been partaking in the Green Communities Grant.
Right,
And we do have a company that comes in and assesses all the buildings. And we've been making changes through the grant on on ways to save energy in the most, like they started with the school with the LED lighting. They've done the LED lighting at the town hall. I'm sure that that's a building that has been looked at
Mhm.
and that we will be trying to outfit with the LED lights.
Mhm.
So we're gonna leave the electricity at 38 then?
Mm. I mean, if we built the 4,000 in there, just in case, at least we have it and I won't
Yeah.
have to come back.
Yeah,
Would-
so when I was looking at, Cody had, let's see, his recommendation was 4,000.
Okay.
I mean, certainly something we can revisit.
Yeah, I mean, it's only $200 more. I would say probably makes
Right.
sense too, but yeah, we can.
Yeah,
We'll
we've
have to-
increased all the other departments as we went along with electrical cost increases and,
Right.
$200 here. We don't have to come back and try to find $200 in the next
Mhm.
summer or whatever,
Well, it would just be a reserve fund transfer, I guess, right? But-
Right,
Right, right.
Line item.
Makes sense.
Line
Yeah, we
item.
did with the library, I think it was, or something just recently.
Okay, all right. Any other questions for Darlene on the budget before we let her go?
All right, we look good here,
It's not bad. Wait until we get our new building. And Sandy said she's gonna volunteer.
Gotta be looking for
Gotta do it
something to do,
retirement.
yes,
Uh-huh.
with all that free time.
And Cheryl too.
I'm working on it, darling.
I know.
All right, well, thank you very much, Darlene, for taking us
Thank
through. Appreciate the
Thank you
time.
Thanks,
very much.
Darlene.
I
Thanks,
appreciate
Darlene.
it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, so then jumping to the next item on the agenda is reviewing the town articles and then the expenditures for fiscal year 24. So, Andy, do you want me? I'm happy. I'm already sharing my screen, so I'm happy to just pop in and share the document Cody's been sharing, and then we get the updates too, because we don't have edit access. So, you're on mute, actually, Sandy.
That'd be fine, Todd.
Okay. All right. So let me share, and then I guess you have to just maybe take notes, I guess, but certainly for me. So, all right. So let me just pull this over. All right. So first on the agenda was the articles. So start there before on the sequence of agenda items here. So actually, I don't know if this, because we did already approve on all the police items, so I don't know why that was
I
not
know. I
moved
thought
over.
Cody was gonna put those.
Yeah, so those are already done. We already know that,
Yeah.
as well as the fire items, right? We already did those.
We did all those. The radios.
Yeah, so really where we're at, which is where I was expecting it just to be, was it, actually, yeah, I don't know, did we vote? We didn't vote on the ADA compliance yet, right? And then the the highway department items we talked about, but we need to cover those. So that's what I wanted to cover
Right.
first, actually. That's what I was expecting to see. So for the, so there was the two items, the chipper and then the Mechalak machine. So with the chipper, we said last meeting that we felt that we should defer that to the next year, but we didn't formally vote on that. So just want to, I guess, confirm everybody's still under the same agreement on the chipper to defer that to next year. And then if so, I'd like to take a formal vote. So is there any open discussion in regards to that, or everybody's still under the same mindset?
Yeah.
Okay, so would somebody like to make a motion to defer the chipper request to a subsequent year?
So moved.
Thank you, Cheryl. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Frank. Roll call vote. Michael,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes, on the chipper.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes on the chipper.
and myself is the yes as well to defer the chipper to a subsequent year. Motion carries.
Todd,
So
did
then,
you get
sorry, go ahead.
Steve's email?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I circulated that
Right.
to everybody. So
Right. So he did ask that we keep it on the warrant.
oh yeah, yeah.
So
Sorry,
you
yeah.
guys
So,
weren't going to recommend it.
yeah, exactly. Yes. Sorry, I didn't
Okay.
mention that. So Sandy, yeah,
Yep,
thank you
that's
for
fine.
mentioning that. So just so for everybody's awareness, it doesn't affect our vote or anything, right? So we're not going to recommend it to the town, right? But certainly, and I think typically just all the articles that get submitted anyways will be on the warrant, right, Sandy? But whether we recommend it or not, but so the plan is to keep this on the warrant. So it'll show up there, just won't come with our recommendation. tag
Recommendation,
associated with
right.
it. So just so everybody's aware, you will see it in the warrant, but so it will be discussed in town meeting, and if the town so decides that move forward with it, then certainly they can make that decision. But from a finance perspective, obviously, we think it's in the best interest of the town to defer to a subsequent year. Which we're specifying subsequent because we're not voting to approve it for next year, right? Obviously, that would be the duties of the committee in place at that time to do that. So whether that's all of us or some kind of change, if folks decide to no longer participate, whatever. So so that's that, I guess. And then so for any questions on that at all? Pretty straightforward, I guess, but
No, it's self-explanatory.
yeah. Okay. So then for the wheeled excavator there, so the Mechalak machine. Steve did provide the usage for that, which we'll document for the minutes. But I guess, did everybody have a chance to take a look through that? Any open discussion?
Yes, I looked through it and just, it looks like he's gotten a quote back from the Volvo distributor of a similar like machine. And we have it on here at 132,000, and he's wants to leave the article at 157,000 per his email. And the new machine quote he's got is 150,080. And does that 150,080 include the trade-in value of the other machine? Because there's no mention of that in here.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
It wasn't in his email.
Yeah.
I know he's on vacation, so that
Right.
I'm not sure. Yeah, because I think the 132 ended up being the net, right, of the trade-in. Because the original
Right.
article was the 157, and then it got changed on the sheet to 132 with the understanding that he was actually getting more from the auction or whatever he was,
Right.
however he was selling it,
Right.
which I think that's how it got changed to the 132. But it sounds like the overall machine is the 157 cost. So I think what we will, if we were going to approve this, we would approve the 157, knowing likely that the cost will come in under that, or is expected to come in under that, based on the fact that he'll get a trade-in somewhere in the neighborhood of like 25,000 or so.
Okay, so if we're gonna go, if he's gonna want to go with the Volvo machine, we're talking a $7,000 differential in the warrant then. Or,
Right.
do we go with the warrant at 157,000 or do we go in at 150,000?
It's better to go in high and come
Yeah.
down, come down than
Right.
to ask for more money.
57,000. Right.
So if we keep it at the 157, and then we can find out about the trade-in. If the trade-in is the same, or if we can, or if we need to do it at 150, we can ask them.
Yeah, I think we'll be much better received if we do it that way, Sandy.
Yeah. We still have one more meeting too before we have to go to print. So if we can find out if Steve comes back, we
Yeah.
might be able to, unless he decides to stay on vacation, but we should be able to get more information from him. On that.
Yeah, I would feel better if he was here to speak on his numbers here. I'd have a better understanding of them, especially if the other vendor that if he goes with the Volvo distributor, are they going to accept the other machine as a trade? And if so, what would that value be to us?
Right.
And the other thing about this, this machine, if he goes with the Volvo, looks like it gets a couple extra more buckets, plus he gets that Bullhog brush cleaning machine as well, if I understand the verbiage here. So we're getting more machine for the money
Mm-hmm.
at a less cost
Right.
compared to the other machine from the first one that he looked at.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And there were add-ons to that he still wasn't getting.
Right.
That's
but
correct.
no, he
In
is.
addition to that, that's correct. Yes.
Right.
And I know in particular this Bullhog here that they're talking about, that is something that I would think the town would use a lot on clearing back the roads, the brush along the roads, up there along the,
Oh, yeah.
all the power lines and things of that nature. So my
Yep.
understanding is the machine they have now doesn't give them enough height to go up high enough for the semis that drive down the road. They clear to a certain point and the semis are still hitting those branches and brushes because they're a higher profile vehicle is what the guys were saying that one day. So this machine that he's got on here, this 30 FMX 36, when I looked it up online today, it had that height clearance to do a higher profile cleaning.
All right. And then Sandy, I guess, do you know when he's back from vacation by chance or?
I'm hoping Monday. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
And that'll be our last meeting before warrant, is that correct?
Before we print the warrant, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I just think the likelihood of, if he's out this week, the likelihood of getting him back is going to be, and scheduled for Monday is going to be probably difficult, but I can certainly reach out to.
So our next meeting is actually the 3rd, right? But we're supposed to,
Yeah. The 3rd.
right? I'm not sure exactly when we're going to print. I think that Cody told me the 7th. So that would be the last meeting before. I think that, like I said before, if we approved it, you recommended it at the 157, and then at town meeting, knowing that it will most likely go down, and at town meeting, we
can change it.
bring it down. It's up to you.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I was
It
kind of
makes
thinking as
sense.
well, Sandy. I mean, so I think really the distinction is like I think we know that the equipment has a lot of benefit, right?
Right.
So it's a question of, there's some details into exactly how it's going to be used and the trade-in and things of that nature. But if we're comfortable with that, it's a valuable, machine for
Right.
them to use, then, maybe we go and improve it at this amount. But again, it's, what the committee wants to do as a whole, I guess. So what are your thoughts, I guess? I guess we can try though, right? So maybe we I can reach out to him and try, see if we can get him in.
Mhm.
And then that'll give some more time, I guess, too, for folks to kind of digest it, I guess. So you're planning to go
Right.
to print on what, Friday the 7th, you said, Sandy, is that right?
I believe so, yes.
So what would be the absolute cutoff date?
Well, Monday you have to have your decisions made so we can finish putting the
Well, I'm
warrant.
wondering if
together.
there's, yeah, I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity, like, can we float off of Monday, I guess, and I don't know if changing the date works for folks that week or not, but can I get a sense, I guess, if we move the meeting to say Wednesday the 5th, is does that work as far as like,
We need 48 hours to, 48-hour notice before we can,
mhm.
to post. So
Oh, yeah.
if we do it, if we meet on Monday and say we need the one more meeting, it would have to be Thursday.
Well, what I'm suggesting is maybe not meeting Monday and just meeting either like Tuesday, Wednesday, give us an extra day or two
Oh,
to get Steve back and kind of be right up
Right.
against, like, you know what I mean? We're trying to, whatever we
Yep.
decide is like the final date that everything needs to be in is that Tuesday, Wednesday, and then maybe we have our meeting on that day, I guess. You know, if it works for the committee members
Yep.
for availability.
If I can.
What do you guys think about that?
I personally would like to hear from Steve one more time.
Yeah.
And really, there's really two reasons. We are bumping up the price again after it went down, and I certainly understand the attachments, and I certainly do understand that, and I also understand the MS4 compliance and cleaning ditches for the good housekeeping portion of Rule 1 of the mass stormwater regulations. I certainly understand that also, but I didn't really see any additional items in the list of what this thing was going to do other than what he has already told us, which is a labor reducing piece of two people instead of four, and the reach of the bucket. And of course, now the new quote at a higher dollar amount adds certainly a different dynamic to the whole conversation.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, no, fair point.
And the other thing I'd like to see as well is the detail estimate like we have on the first machine. So we can kind of see what we're getting at $150,000. And that doesn't actually include all the attachments that he's calling out in his email here.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, what I can do, if you guys want to make your meeting Tuesday or Wednesday, what I can do is I can also reach out to his administrative assistant, see if she already has any of that information and make sure she knows this is what you guys are looking for the meeting. And just have as much information for you as possible for that meeting.
So does Wednesday, April 5th work for everyone?
I can make that work, absolutely.
Looks like it's Passover. I don't know if that matters to anyone or but want to mention that as well.
I'm fine with the 5th.
Okay. Michael, Cheryl, does that work for you?
I'll
Yeah,
have
it
to
should
check
be
my
all set
work
on the
schedule.
It should be good.
Sorry, that was a no, Cheryl?
I'll have to check my work schedule.
Oh, okay. So it's a tentative. Well, we at least, so I'm good for the 5th. So that at least give us a quorum anyways, if Michael, Frank, and Jim, you guys join.
Yep.
And then maybe, well, Jonathan actually sent me a note saying he can't attend anything beyond a Monday. So he would be out. So I guess as long as the four of us were on, then we would have a quorum. So
Yeah, I'm wide open. I'm good there. And on my request would be at 6 o'clock.
yeah, agreed. Yeah, so we can put it in for Wednesday at 6 p.m. I guess, and then that'll allow us if there's any other stragglers too. We do have a few other items to kind of cover, and so if there ends up being any other stragglers, we can just look to kind of nail everything down at that last meeting, I guess.
Yeah.
And that works for you, Sandy, right?
Yep.
Sounds good. Okay. All right, so let's do that. I'll send them off an email, Sandy. I'll
Okay.
copy you on there as well, and then if you want to like follow up with that to the secretary or whatever, then.
Sure.
But I'll send them back a response to the files you sent over.
Todd, I just text Kathy, he is back on Monday.
Okay,
He'll be back in the office on Monday.
Yeah, I don't think we need to blindside him or,
yeah. I hate to do
No,
that
but I mean, at
with the-
least he's coming back.
Yeah.
That's good.
unless he wins the lottery this weekend while he's away.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, that's great, Susan. Thank you for that. So yeah, we'll give him a couple days to get back and settled, and then so we'll shoot for that Wednesday. I'll drop him an email, post this meeting tonight. So hopefully, worst case scenario, he sees it on Monday when he's back and prepare for Wednesday.
Yeah, like I say, if we can get a detail of the of the bid sheet that he quoting these numbers from, really helps me with my thought process.
Yep. Yeah. No. Totally understood and agree as well. All right. So that was that one, I guess. And then so the ADA compliance. So there was the list of items that we got, and this is somewhat of so it's a requirement, right? So it's kind of we were just trying to chip away at it each year, and so we're trying to allocate $500,000 to do that. Scott came up with that list of items that's somewhat loose in the sense, and it's intentional, right, for him to be able to move around as needed to use the money and make the most progress as possible in doing so. So it's meant to be flexible in that regard, but at least he did put together a good list of items that are on the list and kind of walked us through the details there. So, so I'd like to go ahead and get the votes, I guess, for this one to recommend the ADA compliance projects. Are there any open discussion, I guess, before we take the vote? Or
And the funds are going to be managed by Cody, Todd? Who manages the pile of money that's available here?
So I think, yeah, I'm trying to remember, Sandy. So that was going to be put into a separate account, I think, right? And then
Right. So the funds will be managed by the article will be under Scott, he is the director of building maintenance. And anything that needs to be procured will have to go through Cody. Cody is going to start a new purchase order system, and he hasn't worked out all the details on it yet, but any purchases over a certain amount of money will have to go through a purchase order system. So I think it's safe to say it will be well managed.
Well, no, I understand that. So I guess I was just trying to think of there's not just one person that has the checkbook, as it were.
No. And also, Jim, everything comes through me as the town accountant too. I have to sign off on contracts saying there's enough money, and I look at everything to make sure that it's being charged to the appropriate the appropriate account, and I wouldn't be approving anything that didn't fit into the ADA plan.
Yeah, and I would imagine most everything that's going to be procured under this compliance project's going to require a purchase order. It's going to probably meet that threshold of wherever that line's being set for the departments.
Right. So it will be multiple people looking at it.
anything else? Any other open discussion? No. Okay, hearing none. Would somebody like to make a motion to recommend the ADA compliance project for a sum of $500,000?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Cheryl. Roll call vote. Frank?
ADA compliance, yes.
Jim?
Yes, for the ADA.
Michael?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
And myself is a yes. Motion carries for that item. So that brings us down, I guess, to the school items that we just covered tonight. So first one was the rooftop unit. So it sounds like the number dropped to, what was it, $101,000?
Yeah, I think you're right, Todd. Those numbers were bouncing all over the place there, but it looks like 101,000 is going to be Halifax's piece of the one unit.
Right.
I came up with 97.5 when I did the math.
Yeah, me too.
97.5.
Me too, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you guys calculated it. Oh, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did say 101 was the number, but if it's 97.5,
I think what I'd like to do is get a definite from Matt Durkee, who is their director of building, and see if we can make sure that they have the price. They have an actual price. He said
Right.
they had a written quote, and then
Yeah.
how it would be, just so that we
No.
have the right number.
and so when they do the allocation, Cindy, is that something they provide you, I would imagine, right? That breaks that down so
Yep.
you have that for your
Yep,
records?
yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, all right.
That's- So if it's all right with you, if this is something we
Yeah,
can
we
go
should
to next
defer this
time
to,
and get the real number for.
yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's push this to Wednesday
Good
as well
idea.
then. Yeah, and then maybe you can just share that sheet, I guess, that they send with that breakdown, just so we can see how it's
Mhm.
allocated through. All right, yeah, perfect. And then, so the next one was the middle school resource officer, which is a raise and appropriate, which sounds like it went up from 36,000 to 38,000 for this year.
Right.
Any open discussion on this one?
yeah. Nothing you can do. You need to do it.
Yeah, it's-
Don't quibbling about it.
we just had another incident, yesterday down south a little bit, so.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Necessity.
Yep, yeah, no, it's scary for sure. So, would somebody like to make a motion to recommend the middle school resource officer for $38,000? Thank you, Cheryl. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you, Michael. Roll call vote. Frank?
Yes, on the middle school resource officer.
Jim?
That's on the resource officer.
Michael?
yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
And myself is a yes as well. Motion carries. I'm just making a quick note here. Okay, and I think that's it then, right? For the,
Can I ask you if you guys voted on the Plymouth County Extension Services?
We
road
did all
maintenance?
that.
Did you all do all that? I think you must have done it when I was,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
he
thought
came in
Cody
after.
was gonna put it, but
and then
yeah,
the
we did it as a
two
block
fire
because it was all,
articles. Yeah,
Yeah.
the 2 fire articles and 3 police articles. Those are all approved, all recommended.
Right.
yes, we did. Yep, everything's done except for just the 2 highway department items, and then now
Yeah.
the rooftop heating.
right.
Okay,
The one thing we do need to still do is this last item though, so we'll carry this to Wednesday as well. It was gonna be a catch-all of what's
Mhm.
remaining, so that's just
Right.
flux, but we wanted to put, so we had Cody put just a placeholder, I guess, if you will, for now, which we were hoping to do like the $100,000, but I guess we'll have to see what kind of shakes out at the end.
Yeah, we
Right.
might be able to.
Yeah, because the numbers on line item 28, they're gonna change now, correct?
Exactly, yeah. So we might
Yeah.
actually have a little bit more. like,
Right.
Which,
Exactly.
but that money is, that money on line 28 is actually coming from a stabilization fund.
Oh,
Was
yeah,
that-
yeah,
That's what
right,
I was
right, yeah.
recommending. It come from the stabilization
Yeah,
that we had
right.
put aside for the
Right.
school projects.
And how much is it? That's
Well,
like pretty much the
sponsorship.
remainder of balance, right, Cindy?
Pardon me?
That's
The
like the,
202,458, that was the rest of it.
that's
Yeah,
all of it,
Right.
right? Okay.
right. So.
So if it
we're
drops to
still-
100, we'll still
yeah.
have 100 left over then, which is.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
That works.
Yeah, that works huge.
Okay,
And then that money will sit there, Sandy, if, let's say something happens with that second unit on the rooftop over the summer or something like that.
it's in the stabilization fund,
Yeah.
so Frank, the only way to get that money out of a stabilization fund is a 2/3 vote at a town meeting.
Oh, okay.
So if something happened over the summer, we wouldn't be able to easily access that money.
Right.
That would have to,
You have to have a special town
yeah,
meeting.
we'd have to have a special town meeting. So I don't know how they'd be doing it, but
And is that, just to be clear, Sandy, is that so that's not a separate stabilization fund, right? It's just in the
no, we
aggregate of
actually
the.
put
town?
it into our regular stabilization
okay.
fund, but we earmarked it.
Okay.
And that requires a 2/3 vote from the residents?
2/3 vote, yes.
Okay. All right, so yeah, that leaves us with the highway department, the rooftop heating, and then the stabilization appropriation with the remaining free cash to review for Wednesday. And then that should
Yeah,
close.
Yeah.
Todd, just on the highway, we approved the chipper for deferral till,
We did.
Yeah, so
Yes.
that one will come out as well, yeah, so that will
yeah,
be,
okay. So
but again,
now-
that's just our recommendation, right? Like the
Yeah.
town could approve it and it's pushed back in, which would reduce our appropriation for the stabilization fund
Yeah,
at the
well,
end.
Yes. Okay,
But on paper anyways, yeah, that will make even more money available. One of the things we need to think about though too, or should think about, is that we usually leave that $300,000 buffer, right? So, which I think we pretty much wiped out this year. So, could be something we want to think about maybe as well, putting maybe some of that back. So it's something,
yeah.
I guess. I think I don't have it doesn't look like the numbers are in here, I guess, but I know we wiped out just about all of it, right? Sandy, I think there was like
Yeah,
50,000
no,
left or
it
something.
wouldn't be here. We are actually, our expenditures are at this point exceeding our revenues. But we have not had the revised budget submitted yet from the fire department. Cody is waiting for that. So once we get those numbers in, I think we're gonna have to take another hard look and just, I expect it will decrease substantially, but I'm not sure. So hopefully we'll have those in sometime this week.
Yeah, so we need to
And
do that Wednesday then.
They'll definitely be before Monday.
Yeah,
We'll go through and we will then on Wednesday. So on Wednesday, we can go through and just approve all the rest of these. And we should, and Cody may adjust some of his recommendations. I don't know.
okay, so that's the only budget that's
It looks
changing,
like-
though, is
yeah.
the fire,
Right, the fire is going to change.
and that's to remove the positions that he put in there, right?
The 2 extra positions, right? And how,
Okay.
but it wasn't just the 2 positions, it was how it affected all the rest of his budget.
Yeah,
as
right,
well.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know whether you want to vote on the Council on Aging and on the school.
Yeah, I did, that's where, yeah, exactly, that's where I wanted to go next, so, which is the next item on the agenda. So for the council, well, it's not gonna be in here, I guess, but we have the budget sheet that we went over, right, with Darlene, so which is here, so there was the increase we talked about here, right, with the equipment and some of the other like postage and stuff that's gone up, as well as the advertising fee and the we did
Electric.
earmark 4,000 for electric, yeah, so
Right, so what was that? That was 9,050, right?
9,075.
9,075.
9,000, so 9,075.
Yeah.
Right.
any open discussion?
No, once again.
Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the expenditures on the Council of Aging for 9,075?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Cheryl. Roll call vote. Frank,
On the Council of Aging expenditures, 9,075, yes.
Jim,
Yes, for 9,075 COA.
Michael,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
and myself is a yes as well. Would somebody like to make a motion carries unanimous? Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the electricity expenditures for $4,000 on the Council of Aging?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Cheryl. Thank you, Michael. Roll call, Frank,
Yes, on the Council of Aging electric for 4,000.
Jim,
Yes on 4,000.
Michael,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
and myself is a yes as well. Motion carries. there. So I'm gonna close this one down. So the Council of Aging's good. So then it brings us back to the school, I guess, right? Which, isn't ideal, right? But,
Sure is.
I don't know. What's that?
I said it sure isn't.
Yeah.
Especially that busing is just.
Yeah. The
It's just
cost here
outrageous.
is.
That's
Yeah.
just outrageous.
Yeah, it really is. But I think, the providers know that, right? And they have the challenges like,
Oh, sure, they have
maintaining
us.
the equipment, costs are constantly going up, and then finding people and staffing and all that, right, is a factor, right? So it's,
Right.
I think the fees are warranted, I would say, right? Not that they're ideal, certainly, but, there's a lot that goes behind the scenes.
Nothing we can do.
We are looking, like I mentioned, to see if there's a way we could maybe we're never going to replace it in totality, right? But there may be a
Right.
way to subsidize, and that's why, I was really honing in on.
And do we know how many special needs students we had from the town of Halifax?
That's a great question.
I don't know the total head count. No, we could ask that question. Yeah, that should be a quick one to do. I'm just going to share this. I don't know that I sent this out to everybody, but it was an analysis that I had put together a while back, and I had sent off to Jonathan to take a look at. So because he's kind of the liaison with with them. So they gave us some figures or whatever. Basically, they gave us like a spreadsheet, and then I kind of converted it all in and had the pleasure of typing all these in manually to get it out of document and to be able to run this pivot table. But long story short, the total cost was allocated at $895, which has come down some, so that is a positive. We are seeing some downward movement on the fees. But so this is the schools, and then these are the providers right across the top. So this is what I was honing in on the discussion here, where you see, 251,000 of the 895, which is the large portion, is Kingston Elementary School, right? Which is a positive thing, because before I got my hands on this data, I was assuming that the majority of the costs were going to like Randolph and, places that are like, further out, right? So here you can see with Vanpool, 153,000, this intersection is where the biggest bang for our buck would be, if we could tackle this. But they did point out that, Vanpool supposedly is one of the more cost-effective providers. So I guess to the question of the headcount, maybe that's what's driving this up, right? Maybe there's a lot of bus routes involved here. So that's why I think we need to understand what the bus routes are, and then, a product of that will be the headcount as well.
Right.
So that way we can understand like how many vans we would need, and then obviously, how many drivers, right? It should be a 1-for-1 per se, but then we need to consider backups, right? Kind of like what they were talking about with the nurse, right? Like sometimes the driver's going to call sick, and then you need somebody to be able to fill those routes, right? So there are challenges there that would surface if we do try to tackle this, but and I don't know if it's feasible or not, but again, something we want to just kind of keep the tires on and at least at least be able to walk away knowing that we looked at it, right? And not just kind of wave it off as like, it's not something we can do.
So this 895, that's our total transportation cost?
That's what they provided to us. Yeah, I don't know where that actually sits in here. I don't know if it was like the prior year or what, because I was trying to see that here, but I didn't see it. It was like 790. So
yeah.
I think that was the added. So this is the budgeted, but they went over. So I think that's what it is. That was the actual cost that we incurred, I think.
They could have used some of the circuit breaker money to offset the 895.
Yeah, so this is these are actual costs from last year.
So Vanpool's doing about 343,000, a little over 33% of the budget is going into Vanpool.
Yeah, exactly. That's where this is the most majority, right? Like so Kingston Elementary School as a whole is 251, right? Which is like 30% of the overall spend here. So yeah, 28%. But then of that 28%, right? Obviously, like, vast majority of that, 60% of the cost is going to or is provided by Vanpool, itself. So, and this is the this is the regular school year, so 180 days, and then there are summer costs as well. So that's 87,000. So the actual the actual total cost was almost $1 million. It was, you know, 895 plus D7, just for awareness, I guess.
Yeah, so about $1 million year round then.
Yeah, which is why this is such a, I think, a big challenge for the town to tackle. Like, if we could somehow drive this cost down, if we can substitute and maybe this number becomes 75,000 or like, you know, I think
Right.
definitely, you know, that becomes material, right? So, but I don't know if it's worth the hassle, right? So that's what we just need to kind of sort out of like understanding how many vans and all that, you know, what are the, what's it gonna cost and the management of supporting it, so. So I mean, I'll email this out, and so we can add this. We'll add this to the minutes as the special ed cost file. I'll share this with you all if you want to take a further detail. Again, it's, you know, this is the raw data that we got basically in a spreadsheet, and I just reconverted it over, so you can kind of see it, and I just pulled it in. Something that's more to get your arms around and understanding the data, I guess, if you will.
That'd be great.
So, so I did ask, so once we hear back, I guess, on the routes, I guess we can kind of go from there. I think Jonathan mentioned, I think it was like $30,000 or something like that to maybe retrofit the van to be a, was it 70D compliance or something like that. So there is some cost there, but you know, if it's a one-time cost, it doesn't seem to me to be too material, I guess, if you will, but it, if it's, especially if it's like a long-term investment, but, you know.
Yeah, and the other thing with that, the drivers currently that are operating those vans aren't on a full-time basis with us. So how does that scheduling lay in with the Council of Aging scheduling and all of that?
Yeah, and I think that adds to the complexity, right, of hiring somebody just for a couple hours, right? Like, I don't know, there's a lot of people knocking down the doors to just work like an hour or two, right? So that's part of the challenge in hiring just the drivers, I think. So. But yeah,
and then we're talking about retrofitting vans that are fairly old as well. And we're also talking about a different driver's license for probably some of those drivers as well.
Potentially, yeah. So there's a lot of hurdles, obstacles to overcome, right? If there will be if we can have a viable solution. So in the end, it may be that, you know, we just can't do anything, right? So as of today, we're handcuffed by the number, and it might just be that that's the situation in perpetuity, and, you know, but again, at least it's something we're you know, we're exploring, and I guess we'll come to that determination once we have a few more details, but so definitely more to discuss, I guess, there once we.
Yeah, I would think that with those kind of numbers that we're looking at here, $1 million in transportation, that, you know, I would think that there'd be some buying power out there for us with these transporters.
Yeah, well, I think the challenge is just that there's only so many providers now that, you know, keep getting, like the trash service is another classic example, right? It seems like every week they keep getting bought out and they're consolidating into larger companies, and positions are just, you know, falling by the wayside. So and I know Vanpool, you know, is a big provider, right, in the transportation space. So
are they a regional or a national type transport, or what are they?
That I don't know. I know they're certainly a heavy presence here in the Massachusetts area, but I don't know if they're, you know, what they're. Some of these other ones I've never even heard of, but Vanpool I know is a very common one.
Yeah, I'd like to see the sheet. I'd like to look at it from a cost per trip, if that's it even, or per day, if that's even possible.
Well, this is the cost over 180 days, so you just divide it by.
Yeah, by the number.
Right, but you also have summer in there too, and you know.
Yeah, so we're never going to replace this in totality because there's 18 different schools, and you know. So I don't think we're ever going to be able to staff this to be able to. We're not going to hire 50 drivers, right? Like the town's not going to do that. So.
Right.
Fair point, but I'm not worried about the other schools.
So in the summer program here, on your, can you go back to the summer pivot table there, please?
Yeah, it's this here. So it's only $9,000. So it's, you know, if we tackle if this can come into the equation once if we solve for it, but this was the larger, this is what drew my attention as far as trying to see what we can draw for these routes. If we stand something up, then as a byproduct, we have that capability to service. And certainly we can cover the Kingston Elementary and the summer school program. I don't think I think that's an easy solve, right? Like the bigger thing is we're gonna have something stood up or not, right? So we're not gonna vehicles and renovate vans to be 70D compliance just to service the summer school. So this would be a byproduct of solving for this here.
The pineapple is so strong together with that vegan pepperoni. I'd love to see just some more basket ingredients.
So that's where, you know what I mean? Because again, if it costs like, you know, you say if we have to do 2 vans, $60,000, and then maybe the driver to staff, I don't know what that salary ends up being, let's say $20,000. You know, if we're at $80,000 and it's a $70,000 save, then, you know, maybe it's something that's worthwhile pursuing a little deeper. You know, and then again, then we'll get the benefit of being able to service that, I guess, too.
Yeah, some of the concern with that is you cut that van pool in half on that, they may not look favorably toward having that contract anymore, too.
Yeah, when I said the 80,000 being half, it's just the cost savings, not that. Yeah, I don't think that. Like we would replace this, I guess, right? Like we would no longer service the Kingston.
Supplement
right?
it, yeah.
Yeah. We would just hire them to do this service potentially, or I mean, these ones too are in scope, but.
Right, right.
So it'd really be just taking this one over in its entirety if we're gonna do that, right? So. Potentially, but then again, so I mean, once we understand that, like, and if we do decide to move forward with standing something up, which again, I think there's a lot of obstacles to get there, but then you know, we can start looking at the Halifax Elementary School is another 10,000, and maybe that's an easy one to add on to, right? But so it's really solving for trying to understand from a bigger perspective. Does it make sense to do this, proceed, and if so, like, you know, figuring out how we can layer in the other items, but. Unless we can tackle this one, then I don't think there's any value in looking at Halifax Elementary or the summer school program.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I mean, I'll share the sheet with you guys. You guys take a look through it, see what you think, and certainly not anything we're going to solve tonight, right? It's going to take, you know, quite some time to solve for, and I think contractually we're set with them through the year anyway. So this would be really a fiscal year 25 solution. So.
Yeah, having these numbers gives me a much better understanding of what we're talking about on $800,000.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Get a better roadmap of what's going on there.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we requested the data to begin with, so we have an understanding of kind of like what's driving those costs, and so that's what the sheet is here.
Yeah.
So you have the summer rate, the daily rate, and then the school it goes to, and then the companies there. So.
Yeah, and if we can get a student count as well, would kind of help a little bit with my thinking. What?
Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah. So we'll ask them for that, and like I said, that we asked them to share the bus routes. So once we get our hands on that, we can circulate that as well.
Yeah, and on the student count by each of the different schools, you know, how many at each facility. Not just an overall student count.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'll share that sheet, the special ed costs, post the meeting, and then so the budget. So getting back to the budget, right? So I think that's sums it up, right? Is that I think we're really handcuffed by, you know, some of the decisions and some of the committees. It doesn't sound like they're really. Or I don't know if they are or not, but I didn't get the sense that they're really evaluating the cost onto the individual towns. They're more looking at it as aggregate, which, you know, I'm sure makes sense, particularly for the larger schools, but it sounds like maybe Halifax is taking on some of that burden. So,
yeah, like with the shared services of the nursing and the float nurse or whatever they were calling that, Halifax may use it 12 times a year versus another school using it 30 times or whatever, you're still paying for that, whether you have that service in your facility or not.
Right.
But with it being broke out at a 33% for Halifax, that's just what that cost is going to be to you.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know, is there any other open discussion, I guess, on the budget itself, or? So there's the two budgets, the Silver Lake and then the,
So can I ask just one question? And
Yeah.
Sandy, you probably may know this, or someone else may know this. When they mention the ESSER grant and the availability of those funds, and they may not be available, or they're not always available, for the math interventionist, is that something that is just a Halifax expense, or is that a shared resource that goes to the?
No, they mentioned that under Halifax, under the elementary school.
So it's 100% hours.
It's 100% hours.
Right. And
evidently, what they were saying, Jim, was that part of that was funded by the ESSER grant.
correct. 0.6.
Right, right.
So
But the ESSER grant is like the CARES money and the ARPA money that the town got.
yeah.
So it goes away.
So it goes away, meaning what? We won't see that next year, and we'll pay 100% of the math interventionist.
I thought that they were adding in, so we were paying 100% in.
Right.
That's the way I understood it.
Uh-huh.
In 2024, we're paying 100% because we were
Yeah.
already paying 0.4, and the ESSER grant was paying 0.6.
Yeah.
So they put it in this year for 2024 at 100% because they couldn't count on the ESSER money.
It wasn't clear when she.
It wasn't clear, but that's the way I understood it. I don't know if anyone else got it different.
Yeah, Jim, so you had sent a note, I guess, on the details that they provided before, and it's noted as it's 0.49% is already part of the operating budget. So they're adding the 0.51, which then makes it the full 100%. So.
Okay.
So the ESSER grant money is not coming back next year.
Evidently not.
Okay.
So that's a position that is really being created now, correct?
It's not being created.
It's already there. Yeah.
Yeah, it already exists. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the funding of it. So we're having to cover the full funding of that now.
Yeah, but it was a position because they had funding money.
Probably, yeah. When it was first established, yeah, I'm sure that was a factor. Yeah, I would say so.
And now they want to make it a full burden on the taxpayers of the town then.
Of course. Yep.
But I will say that it is, they've found a great need for it. So I don't know.
I'm saying.
It's like a tutor then?
It's an interventionist. So yeah, it would be.
Right.
Yeah. I intervene between, me and me and a lot of things. So.
From what I understand, it's similar to how we always had remedial reading when we were growing up.
Yes.
Right.
So it's sort of like that. It's
Okay. So it's like a tutor.
help on the
It's
math.
extra help. It's extra
Right.
help
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah, for kids that may be
For the
struggling
kids
with.
who need it. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I'm all for it. I'm sure you guys all are as well. For giving the students everything we can. But yeah, I mean, certainly there's some budget constraints here. But again, some of this stuff I think we're kind of handcuffed on some of the past decisions that were made.
There's nothing we can do.
And yeah, some of these are voted regionally, so we're just one part of the equation. So whether we recommend it or not,
happen.
it doesn't matter, right? Because it's kind of just gonna go anyway. So.
And what was the other position they talked about as well, along with that?
So the other position was the
band, baby.
yeah.
Oh, the band. Yeah, they decided.
Musical instruments.
So there's a
Music.
0.4. Yeah, there's a 0.4 for a shared musical teacher.
So that's a shared cost to us then.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, it's a floating position across the 3 towns.
So then why
Well,
wouldn't that
no,
be
it's not across
30%?
the 3 towns.
Oh,
We're sharing it with.
with Kingston.
Clemson.
Oh, is it
Plimpton.
Plimpton? Okay. So yeah, they're
Plimpton.
taking 0.6, then I guess we're
Yeah.
taking 0.4, so
Right.
40%.
So we don't have, the Halifax Elementary School does not have a band teacher.
That's what they communicated, yeah. So it would be a new program, which sounds like we're the only town out of the 3 that don't have that currently, so. So given the fact that the schools merged together, later on was kind of the point they made earlier tonight, where Halifax is somewhat at a disadvantage to the towns, being that, you know, the kids aren't being introduced to music in that regard until later years. So it does sound like that is a value add. We're only taking 40% of the cost as well, which I think is a value add in that also.
Okay, well,
So how long's it been since that school hasn't had a band teacher?
I don't think it's ever had one.
Yeah,
They've
I'm
never
not
had
sure.
one?
I don't think
No,
so.
they did have one.
They did.
When my daughter was in school, they had one.
I played the clarinet.
My daughter played the saxophone. My son didn't do it, didn't do
So-
the band. They didn't
Right.
offer guitar, and that's what he did. But
So-
my son is 32 years old, so,
So it's been quite a while, and now we're bringing it back in, correct?
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, which I think is a good thing. We need to have music in the schools. Because
Right.
kids need to be able to have access to instruments. So our share of that is 40%, and Plimpton's picking up the other 60.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I mean, if we agree that it should exist in the school, then that's a pretty good deal, right? We're only
Yeah, for me it is.
40% of it, so, yeah. Sorry, Cheryl, were you saying something? Or? I think I'm gonna.
No, I'm
Oh,
getting
sorry.
stiff sitting here, so
Oh, sorry.
get up, move around.
All right, so, I mean, any other open discussion, I guess, on the school budgets?
But we're gonna have us over a barrel.
Yeah, unfortunately. So there's the 2 budgets, there's the Silver Lake Regional School District budget, and then the Halifax School Department budget. Somebody like to make a motion to budget as submitted?
Are we gonna vote on them separately or as a one?
I mean, I just do it just to save some time to do them collectively, but if unless there's any objection to doing that, we're gonna approve them both, then I might as well just do it together. Want to do them separately, or is there? Well, let me rephrase the question. I guess, is there any open concerns on either of the budgets? I guess.
If if our enrollment has gone down and we still have a $46,000 increase, that makes sense.
So our enrollment did not go down. It stayed the same. I think we were up like 1 student or something on that idea, so, but it basically stayed the same.
Okay, so we didn't, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, these numbers are gonna, if these, depends on what goes on with these developments they're talking about in town, these numbers are gonna change
They could go
significantly
up.
here in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah, it's the biggest burden on the town, right? So it's I
Right.
think something that's
It
gonna have to be
is,
solved
yes.
for. I don't know
More than
that.
50% of the budget.
Yeah. So do we open our own school, right? Which certainly has its own cost, right? In doing that, but I don't know.
And this doesn't include raises or anything either.
They build that in.
So those numbers are built into these overall numbers we're looking at here right now, Sandy? On the
I believe
assessment?
so, yes.
Yeah.
So the way they have to do it, they have to make sure they have enough money in there so they can settle a contract.
Yeah.
I don't believe they have a settled contract yet, though.
But they factored in a percentage into these
I believe
numbers.
so, yes.
Do we know what that percentage is?
I have no idea. And they wouldn't tell us if we had asked them, because they're still in negotiations, so
Yeah.
they really couldn't reveal that.
So if we vote in a certain percentage for our townspeople, it doesn't make any difference to them, correct?
Right,
you.
they negotiate independently.
Yeah.
The school committee negotiates the contracts with the teachers. So the Silver Lake School Committee with the regional teachers and the Halifax Elementary School Committee with the Halifax Elementary School teachers.
Okay. And they do their contracts on a yearly basis as well?
No, actually, they do 3-year contracts.
Well, that makes sense,
Mhm.
actually. Yeah, we only do ours on a yearly basis.
That might be changing. That was a Charlie thing. So we'll see how it goes now, if it changes.
Okay.
All right.
No, I don't think we have a choice on the budget. Yeah, the school budgets.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have a choice. We can not recommend it, right? But
Right, but
what would that mean in the grand scheme of things, right?
yeah, it wouldn't.
Honestly, I don't
yeah.
think it means anything, right?
No, it
So
doesn't,
it's going to go
so.
through either way. In fact, even voting to recommend it, I don't know really so much matters, I guess. But we should do so just part of business, I guess.
Right.
So I guess with that being said, I guess would somebody like to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 24 budgets for the Silver Lake Regional School District and the Halifax School?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Frank. Thank you, Cheryl. Roll call vote. Jim,
Yes, on the fiscal year 24 budgets for Silver Lake and Halifax Elementary.
Michael,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes, on the Halifax and Silver Lake fiscal 24.
and Cheryl,
Yes.
and myself is a yes as well. Motion carries unanimously. So I think that takes, well, lost Peter, I guess. I think that takes care of then all of the expenditures, right? So, just moving on to the agenda then. So the next one was the new town revenue suggestions. I haven't seen anything come through there as of yet. There was, so I know Cody had shared the fees that were being aggregated up from the department level. So maybe that's something I think we said that we'll just take a look at after the town meeting and when things kind of quiet down. But he did share that preliminary sheet, I think, with everybody. So you should have seen that. I think there were a few updates that were just still pending. So we'll look to nail that down in subsequent month or so. Otherwise, I haven't seen anything else. The correspondence and as may arise, I haven't seen any correspondence. Has anybody else seen anything or have anything to raise? No.
Oh, we discussed going out for a 7th member. Is that correct?
Well, so yeah, I don't know if it's been posted to the site, but yeah, there's an open position now. So if anybody knows of someone that has interest, then we can start to gather some candidates, and then we would look to host the interview, and then based on our decision on who we should select, would then go to the Board of Selectmen for similar protocol, right, with an interview and discussion, and then if they vote. Then they'll vote accordingly to accept or deny the person. I haven't seen anyone get denied historically, so it's more of just kind of meeting the person and having some discussion with them to get familiar with them before they kind of enter the. So it's a little bit more of a formality, I guess, per se, but that's the standard protocol that's usually followed.
How do we go about getting that posted out there, Todd?
So Cody will post that. I don't know if it's out there. Let me just look, I guess. I don't know.
So the selectmen were accepting Tom's resignation tonight at their
Yes.
meeting. That was on their agenda.
Oh, was it? Okay.
So, yeah, so I'm sure that Cody will post it after
Post that
this.
then. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why it
Okay.
hasn't been posted yet then, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
But again, if anybody knows of somebody in the community or whatever that has some interest, definitely let us know and we can, start to gather the candidates that are interested. I do think, like I mentioned before, like I do think it's a good time to get somebody in so they can at least, sit through the town meeting and just experience that. I think there's a value add in that, just, listening in and being part of the team. So if we can get somebody in by then fantastic. But if not, then that's fine too. We definitely don't want to rush it at the same token. So just to get somebody in for the meeting. So, yeah, we can start moving. But I don't think there's no reason. I guess my point is there's no reason to hold off with getting somebody. Progress through that. Then any public participation from anyone?
Yeah, I know that they'll have at least one reserve fund transfer request for the next meeting. So if you want to make sure that's put on the agenda, any reserve fund transfer requests.
Okay. Sure. All right. No public participation? Okay, next meeting planning. So we already kind of discussed that. So next meeting will be scheduled for, let me just pull up my calendar again, Wednesday, April 5th at 6 p.m. And Cheryl, you're gonna check with it. You mind just dropping me an email, I guess?
I'll
Just once
let you know. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Yeah, just so we know whether or not we're gonna expect you or not. As long as the four of us, I guess, are on, then we'll at least have a quorum, but it is obviously critical that all four of us attend in case Cheryl cannot, so otherwise we'd have to bypass the meeting, so, which will be our last attempt to hold the meeting, so. Okay, I think that's it, so, so I guess we'll go ahead and close the meeting. We'll make a motion to close the meeting at 9:18. Would somebody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Michael. Thank you, Cheryl. Roll call vote, Frank,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
and myself as well as a yes. Thank you all for your time tonight and hope you all have a great night. And I'll send that sheet off to you, like I mentioned. If you have any questions or anything, just feel free to drop me a note and I'll circle back with you.
Okay.